When I'm out photographing in nature, I like to also make videos of the animals that I come across. Now, one of the hurdles that I run into is the sound isn't good. So I'm kind of stuck with the microphone that's inside my camera, especially if I'm trying to go light. I have just the camera and the lens. I'm stuck with the microphone that's built in the camera. Now these camera microphones have gotten way better, but the problem is they're only really good for about 3 feet or so in front of the camera. As you get farther away from the microphone, the volume has to turn up so high that your details, and you start picking up all kinds of other stuff. You pick up airplanes and dogs barking and wind and all these other things that end up making it more distracting. And I think that a video that has good sound is really going to draw the viewer in, and you have that sound of exactly what the animal is making. So the way I conquer this is I go back in the studio and I build this soundscape exactly of what I photographed. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and it's a really fun way to go. It's an exciting way that you can create better sound for your video and really draw that viewer in, which I think is important. So let me show you how to build your soundscape with sound effects after, coming up. All right, we're here in my studio, and today we're going to record some Foley sounds. So what we're going to work with is I kind of got a few props that'll work with to make the sound. I have a microphone and a recorder. So let me show you the products that I'm going to use for this. The first thing is the squirrel video you saw. He was chewing on a pine cone. So I just grabbed a couple of pine cones, and I also got a pair of pliers so that I can maybe pull that pine cone seed off. And one of the things that you want to really watch all your sounds, right? So I actually have a piece of blanket here, a sound blanket down on the table so that I'm not getting any extra sounds. And I also have a piece of wood here so that if I drop some of the pine cone pieces onto wood, it'll be like pine cone pieces dropping on that log that he was sitting on. So I'm trying to take care of those things. The other thing that I do is you'll notice that I don't have any rings. I have really soft cotton clothing, so I'm not making any clothing sounds when I'm doing this. Also, while I'm recording, a lot of times I'll record and I just maybe might hold my breath for a second or two, so I'm not getting any breathing sounds either. Because the microphone that I'm going to use is this. This is a set up as a Shep's array for environmental microphones, stereo environmental sounds. So that's how come they're set up in that position. They're very sensitive microphones, way overkill for what you need for this. You can use any microphone. You want to just get the microphone as close to the sounds that you're making, the better. The closer that microphone is, the less other ambient sounds you're going to pick up. And so you keep it close, and then when you go back into post-processing, which I'll show you that as well inside of Final Cut, and when you start to put this whole thing together, you'll just have pieces, little bits of sound that you can plug in wherever you need to. I have the microphone running into my MixPre 3, which is a small sound devices recorder. It records at 32-bit. Great recorder, love it. And also hooked up my headphones. You have to have headphones so you can hear what it is that you're doing when you're working. And the last thing that I have is my iPad. So what I'll do is I'll take that video, put it on the iPad, because the iPad's relatively silent. I can run that and watch it while I'm doing my sound effects to match up to what it is I'm trying to do. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me show you how that works. All right, so I've got my setup here. I got my pine cone sitting here. I got my microphones really close. You want to get the microphones as close as you can to the sounds that you're trying to record. And you can see over here on the microphones, watch this as I make some sounds. See how that level spikes up there? So that level is going to spike up to the point where we want to get good recording, but we don't really want it going into the red when we're doing it. So all of our work that we're going to do is right over here. And of course, in the background here, you can see I have the video of the squirrel working away. And so I can just hit play and watch that and say, okay, oh, all right, so that's how he did that there. He pulled out a piece. So let's go ahead and record a piece. Let's go ahead and hit record. So now we're going to be recording on the Mix Pre. I always like to announce exactly what it is I'm doing, so if I find that recording another time, I know what we're doing. We're recording pinecone sounds. So we're going to hold this here, and we're going to listen on our headphones. Super important to have headphones so you can hear what the sound is that's being made by this, by these microphones, in front of these microphones. So you can see here, listen to this. Everything that you do can be heard. Just my rubbing my fingers over that wood, you can hear that. So what I'm going to do is take a pine cone and grab one of these seeds and tear it off. Here we go. Okay, so that's a little extreme. Let's try another one, see if we can pull one off. Here we go. So that was the pine cone sound that I was looking for, right? And as we create these pieces, maybe I want to have the sound of some of these pine cone pieces falling on the wood. So those are things, as you see, he'll start dribbling off pine cone pieces. So we'll play this and keep an eye on it and try to get to the point where we're take the same amount of time as he's taken to record this. So it takes a little bit of practice and it enables you a chance to kind of get a feel for what's going on. The other thing that we're going to get into is he's just sitting here nibbling on this pine cone. So how do we do that? How do we get that sound? So the way that I was doing it is I'll just take a piece of pine cone seed and I'll just do this. Let's go ahead and rewind this. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll just come up here and I'm just making the sounds of me just rubbing a seed into the pine cone, making that little scrubby sound that kind of sounds like him chewing. Okay, so once I record all these, then I take them into my suite where I do the editing, the video editing, and it'll enable me to kind of line these things up and create the recording. So let me show you that part where we're actually going to go in and sit in front of Final Cut and put this all together. We're inside here with Final Cut Pro, and I've got my assets already loaded in. We've got the little film of the squirrel, and we can see it running right here. And now I need to add the sound. So what I did is I recorded the sound. And the way I do this, that I find it's easier, is I just come over here and then I go to take a listen to what the sounds are. I can look at the waveforms and see where the sounds are. And let's go ahead. I think this was a pretty good one. Let's listen to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and clip that. And we'll clip it right here. Let's go ahead and drag that down over in the beginning of our frame. So let's see. So as we look at this here, he peels off a piece of pine cone seed. There. So that's where he peels it off. So we want to make sure that we get that sound right there where he peels it off. So let's go ahead and listen to that. That sounds pretty good. And he crunches on another one. So let's go ahead and just copy this. We just hold the Option key and drag up, and that makes an additional. So let's go ahead and put that down here. And that should work. So let's listen to this again. Okay, that's good. So we just need to start adding these pieces in and work our way through this. So let's go ahead and let's get a piece here. We just using the little cut tool and cutting pieces and just bringing them over into where we want them to be. We can duplicate as many of these as we want, so we're just going to duplicate a few of these so we have them. And we can start laying these things in where we think they go. And if we want to overlap, we can move them a little bit and overlap them so that they fit. And then, of course, we had this section here where I was just scratching the pine cone. And let's go ahead and grab that. And we'll use about that much of it. And we'll bring that over in the area where he was just nibbling on the pine cone. So we'll have that kind of sound where he's nibbling on the pine cone. That sounds pretty good. So let's continue on, and we'll just keep cutting these little pieces using the blade tool, cutting pieces that we like, and hit the letter B, cut a piece, cut another piece, and then drag it over, put it in the proper spot so we have all these pieces laid out. If you like this kind of content, take a second to hit the like button, then subscribe, and then ring the little bell to be reminded of my next video. All right, so we've got all of our pieces in place. You can see I've duplicated several pieces, multiplied them, put in some just the background sounds of the scratching of the pine cone. Let's go ahead and play it. All right, so things are lined up. Now, the thing that I wanted to do is when we do something like this, that's never what you actually hear. You don't just solely hear what the animal is doing. You have to have some background. And I'll tell you, a really quick and easy way to do that is to join a company that has a subscription. It's called Soundly. And the way Soundly works is you just punch in what you want to look for. In this case, we're going to punch in oak trees. And it'll give you a feed of everything that might be associated with oak trees. And let's go ahead and grab this one. And we listen to it. And this is just birds in the background sounds. So all you do with Soundly is you take a spot that you want and just drag your mouse across, and you grab that hunk, and then you drag this over into Final Cut. It couldn't be easier, right? So now I've got this background sound of typical forest that's going to be much more involved and going to have a much more deeper setup. So Soundly is a sound company that does sound effects. They're not sponsored. I just use them all the time. I think they're great. And so you can punch in any kind of sounds that you want. You know, if you want to punch in pine cones breaking, and trust me, I did, because I wanted to save myself as much trouble as possible. But there wasn't, okay, here's some crunchy pine cones. Let's take a listen to this and see what we think. So it was kind of just a nibbling of pine cones. So it wasn't actually in time with the prying of the pine cone seed off like we did. So my sound's going to work better for that. But for like background sounds, or if you want a car crashing or anything like that, Soundly is an awesome place to go. And so I really encourage people to do that. It's a subscription-based program, and you can just punch in, and they add new sounds all the time. So it's really, really great. So definitely you want to use that. So when you're done, your architecture looks like this. You've got your video up top here. You've got your little clips that we've done of the pine cone and duplicated, as well as little scratching sounds. They're all duplicated and set in place. And it's kind of fun to just set those things in place and find out where you like them. And then on an overall, you'll put in this background sound, which is going to be of birds chirping in the tree. And what usually I'll do is I'll turn that down just a little bit, so it's just a little bit more in the background. And so let's take a listen. So much better than just having blank there. I mean, you could put it with music, of course, and that's fine. But this is a little bit better way to go. You add a little bit of actually environmental sounds, and that you can't really get on location, right? If you're on location and try to get that, you're going to get wind sounds, you get people talking, you'll get other things that are going on in the park, and that's not really something that you want. So you really want to focus the sound, and this is a great way to do it. I read and answer all the comments that are in the comment section, so go ahead and feel free to leave a question or a comment in there. If you'd like to get a hold of me directly, you can email me, terry@imagelight.com, and I'll respond that way via email. I'll also add you to my mailing list. All right, until next time, we'll see you.